Why Trump supporters are quietly quitting MAGA. There's a psychological reason for that. NBC News polled over 20,000 Americans and found out that every 100 MAGA Republicans, 8 of them stopped strongly supporting Trump in a single year. And the number of Republicans who even identified as MAGA dropped from 57% to 50% in the same time period. They are leaving quietly and saying nothing publicly. They can't admit they were wrong, so they quietly take off the red hats, remove the bumper stickers, take down the flags they used to fly so proudly. I've seen a lot less red hats around. How about you? Psychologists call that social desirability bias. It is easier to quietly disappear from a movement than to stand up and admit you were wrong. Admitting you were wrong about Trump means admitting you were manipulated, that you cheered for cruelty, that you believed the lies. That is not a conversation most people are willing to have out loud with people who might say, "I told you so." So they say nothing. They stop posting. They skip the rally. They change the subject. The exit is happening in silence because pride won't let it happen out loud. The movement is collapsing. They just won't tell you. And the silence is deafening.
Hey everyone. So I'm just here to help anyone out who doesn't understand why how you voted in the election is strictly a difference of opinion that we can all just go on with. So a difference of opinion is you like coffee and I like tea. Maybe you can't stand tea. I know I don't like coffee, but that's okay. Like, drink your coffee. I'm totally cool with it. And you're totally cool with me drinking tea. I'm not forcing it on you. When you vote to outlaw tea and punish tea drinkers, that's no longer opinion. You've acted on that opinion to put yourself above tea drinkers. And now, because I'm a tea drinker, my life's in danger. Because I could be punished just for liking tea. So that's not a difference of opinion. You've made an action. You've made an action that's endangered my life and the lives of so many other people. So it's not a difference of opinion. You've made an action. And the consequence is that there are some people who are not going to be friends with you anymore. And there's some people who aren't going to have a relationship with you anymore. And the reason for that is because we don't trust you. You voted to put yourself above us and to punish us. That's not an opinion, that's an action. I have the right to make myself feel safe. And that's what I'm doing. I'm making myself feel safe. I'm making the other people around me who are now in danger, I'm making a safe space for them too. So this is not an opinion. You took action and these are the consequences for your actions. If you don't like the consequences of your actions, one, you're not alone. And two, it's your actions that have to be looked at by you. And I wish you luck with that.
A growing divide in America is raising uncomfortable questions, and for many people, the issue goes far beyond politics. Across social media, workplace, friend groups, and even families, there are increasing reports of relationships being strained by political differences. Some people claim that support for Donald Trump has become a major factor in how others feel them, leading to the argument, social distancing, and in some cases broken friendship. For supporters of Trump, this feels unfair. They argue that political relief should not determine whether someone is accepted, respected, or included in society. Others counter that political choices can reflect value and priorities that influence how people relate to one another. The result is a country where political identity has become deeply personal. What was once a disagreement over policies has, for many Americans, evolved into disagreement over trust, culture, and the future of the nation itself. As this debate continues, many Black commentators and community leaders are weighing in, offering different perspectives on accountability, political loyalty, and the consequences of decisions made at the ballot box. Some believe this social tension was inevitable, while others worry that America's growing polarization is creating division that will be difficult to heal. Now, I want to hear from you. Should political belief affect personal relationship, friendship, and professional opportunity, or should people be able to disagree politically and still maintain strong connection?
I just texted my best friend of 14 years. Literally half of my life. I'm 28. And I asked them who they voted for. They said Donald Trump. And they said, I'm assuming you voted the opposite. And I said, yes. And then my friend texted me and said, will you still be my friend?
Seems like your friend dodged a bullet. Now, all of a sudden, we cannot align ourselves with anyone with different views. That is so small-minded, so closed-minded, especially from the group of people who say to be so accepting, so tolerant, so loving. If you can't sit there and see who this person is, see that they're a good person, see that they're a genuine friend to you, you're going to decide if you're going to be friends with them still based off who they voted for. If you're not surrounding yourself with people who think differently than you will never grow and you will never learn. The fact that you're throwing away a friendship of that many years over something so minute, there's a problem there. You don't have to agree with them, but being able to step outside of what you believe and trying to understand someone else's perspective is extremely important. And if you don't have those skills, then you probably shouldn't have friends.
No, because I want you to hear me when I say with my full fucking chest, if you voted for Donald Trump, I want you out of my life. Because at a base level, I don't care for friends. I don't care for family. Because if I'm going into a future where interracial marriage is even up for debate, I don't want you at my wedding. I don't want you there. If I travel out of state while on my period and my blood condition causes me to start hemorrhaging, and I happen to be in a state where women's health care is so strictly regulated that doctors feel like they can't interfere because any period-related bleeding could be a pregnancy and there's no interfering in that, and I bleed out and die because of the laws that are going to be left up to states' decisions, I don't want you at my funeral. If the Department of Education is defunded and my children can't go to school unless it's at a private institution that we cannot afford, and there's no way to get any assistance in affording this, I don't want you in my kids' lives. And that's just the beginning of it. So honestly, truly, if you voted for Trump, get out of my life.
If you voted for Trump, we can't be friends. I heard that and I was like, wow. The thing that resonated deeply to me was, well, the first thing that resonated to me was, you mean to tell me that there are people that are in your life and you don't know where their moral compass is? What would be the purpose of getting rid of them now? You already have a relationship with them. Now is the time to really dig deeper into your relationship, your friendship with them, so therefore they understand a different point of view. It's not okay for them to vote the way that they want to vote, but it is okay for you to continue to allow them in your life without holding them accountable for other behavioral factors that have probably existed in your friendship and that have been there all along. That's your fault, boo-boo. It's your fault. You allowed them in your life for all of this time, right? And you did nothing about it. Let me break it down for y'all a little bit more. You see that woman cheating on her man, but that's my girl. You don't do anything to stop the behavior. You don't do anything to limit their access, limit the access that they have in your life. You're the superior person. How dare you vote for Trump, right? They're cheating on their man. You allow the behavior. You don't let them know how unethical that is. You do nothing about it. You see how poorly your mother treats your sibling, but you do nothing about it. That's just mama. You know how she is. You don't set boundaries for people in your life. You don't express the things that you need, and these are the non-negotiables. And this is what I would like our healthy relationships look like. How do we compromise and get on the same page about what that looks like going forward? But the moment you find out someone that you knew or someone that you know voted differently, you ready to throw in the towel? I say no. What really needs to happen is you really need to do a self-assessment and figure out, Why is it okay for me to allow people that have such a different viewpoint in my life? That's one thing that you could look at, but also really think about the other behavioral characteristics that they've exemplified over the time that you've known them, and how have you held them accountable? You know your mama is fucked up. You know she crazy, but you allow her around your children thinking that, well, they're my kids and I'll limit the access and she ain't gonna do nothing crazy around my kids. But it still goes back to what you allow, what you don't address, what you don't insist changes, or else you approve. How many times have you asked a friend a thought-provoking question and you let them slide with, I don't know? How many times have you shown up with someone or to someone with pure vulnerability and they met you with silence and you didn't express how that hurt? Their silence, how that hurt you? How many times have you allowed your mama to disrespect her sister and you don't say, not on my watch? That's not going to happen. Example, before I called a complete disconnect with my entire family, my mother was disrespectful to my aunt. And my mom told me, actually, my mom didn't tell me about it. I called my aunt told me about it. Then when I followed up with my mom, she was like, yeah, I said it. Yeah, I did it. And I had to let her know. You owe her an apology. And she's like, I'm not apologizing. She was coming at me first. And I'm like, just because she said some foul shit doesn't mean you had to retaliate with some foul shit. The appropriate thing to do is say, what you said was disrespectful and very hurtful. Please don't speak to me that way. Not please, don't speak to me that way. Most people won't have those conversations. But what I did is I took it a step further and was like, and until you make that right with her, don't talk to me anymore. Because if you do it to the least of them, you'll do it to any of them. Right? Does that sound familiar? So if you aren't holding your friends accountable for the little things, right? What the fuck makes you think that they're going to be all so open and honest about the big things? You have to start somewhere. You can start by self-accountability, self-reflection moments, but also you can start from a heart posture of, these are some little things that I've observed. I would love for us to come together and have a conversation about it. Trust me. Do I want to have a conversation with people about how is it possible that almost half of Americans voted for a convicted felon, someone that's been impeached? Let me just stop right there. He couldn't even get a job as a janitor, but we trust him to be the president of the United States. Where is the moral compass in all of this? How is that even right? But again, it goes back to what you don't address, what you don't set boundaries for, what you don't correct. You have given your stamp of approval. So you know what? Your moral compass is out of the window just as much as theirs is, because you have no moral character for yourself. What you don't address, what you don't fix, what you don't set boundaries for, you absolutely allow. So again, don't start cutting off your friendships because of the election. It's what you allowed. Shame on you for not doing your due diligence and saying, you know what? These are the things that are unacceptable in my life. These things are unacceptable for people that I associate with and spend my time with. That's your fault, not them. Reassess their friendship. Try to understand what their reasons were. Their reasons are their reasons, but you should have known it before it got to this point. So shame on you. But do your job. Self-reflect. Set those boundaries so you know who the fuck you dealing with in the future.
I've been watching an interesting phenomenon play out both here and on Facebook, and I would love to know if y'all are seeing this as well. Okay, here it is. Folks who voted for Trump don't want us to kick them out of our lives, to cut them off. They want to desperately present themselves as good people. I've seen it both from friends and relatives on Facebook. Like, please, I just voted for the economy. Politics isn't personal. This is a private decision and it doesn't have to get in the way of our friendship. But I've also seen it on this app where folks are like, hey, please don't stop following me. Please still like me and watch my content so I can get paid. I'm not a bad person. I'm just an independent. I just voted for lower gas prices and lower prices of eggs. We can still be mutuals. You can still watch my content. Or folks who are content creators and are like, unfollow me if you voted for Trump. I've seen folks in their comment section being like, no, we can agree to disagree. I can still like you. I can still follow you. Y'all literally voted against the safety, well-being, rights, and future of the folks you are now asking to continue to have relationships with you. Why are you so desperate to be perceived as not a bad person? As like, don't let our differences get in the way of our friendship. It's not that big of a deal. Like, why don't you just own what you did? Aren't you proud of what you did? Why are you so desperate to continue relationships with folks who you want to see deported, denied access to health care, folks whose lives will become immeasurably more burdened and stressful because of what you did? This desperate need to be perceived as a good person and to not be cut out of people's lives, the inability to handle the distress of other people not liking you, the distress of having to realize the consequences of your action are irreparably damaged relationships. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when white people think that it is worse to be called racist, to have their racism pointed out to them, than it is for people to experience the racism that they are perpetuating. The discomfort, the agitation, the distress that it causes to have to face the fact that you are racist. You think that is worse than people experiencing racism. And I think there's some of the same going on here. You think it is worse for people to think badly of the choices you made than the harm that will be done by the choices that you made. You want to do the bad thing, but still be perceived as good and likable. It is worse to be disliked than it is to actively harm other people. I hate to say it, y'all are going to have to face the consequence of your actions. This is just the first hen returning to the coop, and all of your chickens are going to come home to roost.
So I recently saw a video where a Kamala Harris supporter told her parents who voted for Donald Trump that they cannot see her or their grandchildren during this holiday season because the grandparents chose to vote for Donald Trump instead of voting for Kamala Harris. And for those of you out there who may be experiencing the same thing from your family, friends, and loved ones, I understand exactly how you feel. I lost my father when I was 16 years old. So everyone in my family tends to gather either over my mother's house or over somebody else's house in the family. But this year, I honestly do not know if I will be welcome at anyone's table for the holidays. And I'm okay with that because I made up in my mind that I am going to be true to myself. I accept Kamala Harris supporters for who they are and don't require them to change. So I don't want to be around people who require me to change in order for me to enjoy their company. If I am not welcome at anyone's table this year, I will be okay because I would rather be myself than to sell out a piece of who I am to enjoy somebody else's company. I've also had other relatives scream at me at the top of their lungs because I supported Donald Trump. Never once have I brought up the topic of politics with anyone in my family or tried to change anyone's mind. But they are the ones who always bring it up and who are always trying to change my mind. Only imagine how hard it must be for a grandparent not to be able to see their grandchildren during the holiday season. But if you're going through anything like that, just praying that God would bless you and strengthen you. But I'm also praying that God would touch the hearts of these Kamala Harris supporters who are doing this, who are cutting off relationships with lifelong friends, family members, just because they didn't do what you wanted them to do. People think they're winning. But anytime you separate grandchildren from their grandparents, that's a losing battle. Anytime you're willing to tear apart families, that's a losing battle. And that reveals the condition of your heart.
They lied to every single artist, every single one. The Trump administration put together a massive concert lineup for their so-called Freedom 250 celebration. Martina McBride, the Commodores, Young MC, Morris Day, CNC Music Factory, Milli Vanilli. Big names, real draw. There's just one problem. Not one of them knew it was a Trump event. That's not speculation. These artists said it themselves, on the record, publicly, one after another. Their agents were told this was a nonpartisan celebration of all 50 states, a state fair, wholesome, community, music bringing people together. Martina McBride posted it directly. I asked a lot of questions and was assured this was a nonpartisan event. Then, the day before the announcement went public, things started changing. She found out what it really was. She quit. Then the Commodores quit. Young MC quit. Morris Day quit. CNC Music Factory's Freedom Williams went on video and said, and I'm paraphrasing, "My agent called me 3 months ago about a show in D.C. He didn't say anything about Trump. I hate Donald Trump. One by one, gone. Here's the twist. The administration's response? This is nonpartisan. We just want to bring people together. They said that while every artist was publicly posting that they were deceived. Now think about who's left. Vanilla Ice, possibly Kid Rock again. The same Kid Rock who flies around in military Apache helicopters, taxpayer-funded flyovers to his house, and once said in a White House meeting where Trump genuinely asked him what to do about North Korea. Kid Rock, North Korea policy. Let that breathe for a second. And the Milli Vanilli situation, even that's a mess. The actual original vocalist released a statement saying whoever shows up to this concert should be considered a tribute band with zero musical connection to them.
The one person still willing to perform is the face of the group, who never actually sang a single note on any of their records. So the Trump concert lineup is literally built on artists who didn't consent, a band that lip-synced, and Kid Rock. And here's the real story underneath this. Ben Folds, former curator for the National Symphony Orchestra, resigned early 2025, said something that cuts through all of it. The Kennedy Center takeover wasn't about booking bands. It was the first move. Control the arts, then move to the networks, then late night, then 60 Minutes. Steamroll in order. These artists who walked away, they understand exactly how they were going to be used. The question I want you to answer in the comments: if artists have to trick into showing up, what does that tell you about who's actually excited to be there voluntarily? Drop it below. Real talk only.